I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Tim Davie, the Director General of the BBC. Delighted too to welcome as chair of that session, Janine Gibson. Janine is the Assistant Editor of the Financial Times. She spent much of her career at The Guardian and Guardian Media Group. She became Deputy Editor under Alan Rushbridger and also Head of The Guardian's online operations. Previously, she headed and indeed pretty well launched The Guardian's major US online operations. After The Guardian, she was Editor-in-Chief of BuzzFeed UK. So, Janine, over to you now to introduce Tim.
Thanks, Colin. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here again. Thank you for having me back. When we were here last year for the conference, also on Zoom, I had the pleasure of interviewing Richard Sharp on the VLV's behalf. At that point, I think we were in the middle of an all-time low in relations between the government and the BBC. It was unclear what the corporation would be cutting in the light of an aggressive licence fee settlement. I seem to remember there was an unholy row going on in the newspapers about something, possibly the Royals. Of course, everything's changed this year and it's completely different. Has Tim already left? No, he's coming back. Given the huge amount to discuss, are you there, Tim? Are you muted?
I'm no longer muted. Sorry, I just went off for a minute. So yeah, sorry, I'm here.
If you're going to be stung by my lightly witty introduction, then we're all in trouble. Anyway, this format works best if we think of this as very much a collective exercise in questioning the DG. So please type your questions into the box as we go along. Don't wait for me to formally throw it over. That way we can have a healthy mix of questions about the fundamental nature of democracy, what's on telly on Saturday night, and whatever's preoccupying my colleagues in the news media. And as Colin said, please say if you're representing an organisation. Thank you very much. Tim, good morning.
Morning, good to see you.
It's nice to see you. Let's start with a nice easy one. How would you currently characterise relations with the government?
We're in pretty good shape. I mean, I think I had a wry smile when you said government relations were at an all-time low because, and we've actually got a documentary. I think David Dibbleby is going to be looking at the history of the BBC over 100 years. And it's if you are an impartial media company in the way we are, or organisation, public service broadcaster, you know, you're going to have a relationship where we're independently minded. We're going after our business. We're against the charter, driving against the charter. You're going to have some moments, and I think you have got ups and downs. You have got bits, you know, moments of tension, but overall, it is constructive. And people kind of say, "Well, is he just trying to give me a politician's line on this, as it were?" Actually, I do think people care about the creative industries in the UK. I think they care about Britain's place abroad, wherever you are on the political spectrum. I've just been in India and other places. I you know, forgive the cliche, but what holds us together is bigger than some of what we see as some of the bigger, you know, these things that break out and debates. And we are holding people of power, including myself, to account. And that is going to be lumpy at times. So no, overall, I think we're doing a good job. I think the dialogue is genuinely constructive, muscular. We've got views and we're getting on with it.
You published a report yesterday on how to support their levelling up agenda, and you've appointed a political editor for BBC News with the remit of not breaking stories. I would imagine the government's delighted.
Yeah, that's not strictly true. I mean, I think the last bit, by the way, we did do what is true is, by the way, we did I mean, we can talk about this more generally, but people know I passionately believe that with the licence fee, one of the things we can do is we can be, and this is in our own BBC self-interest, by the way. So it's not just about building Creative Britain, but, you know, having been up to the Northeast in the last couple of weeks, working in Birmingham, working in Cardiff, been to Sheffield. I mean, this is where the BBC, with its licence fee, can really make a difference to creative communities, but also attracting writing talent. So, look, you know, there's lots of verbiage on levelling up, but actually, if you go to the fact the BBC is forming an apprenticeship training agency in Birmingham, and we can talk to the regional authorities, local authorities, you know, basically the film bodies locally, all those things, and say, okay, how many jobs can we create in the creative industries? Creative industries, and this is why it's so important and the BBC is so critical. Creative industries is 2 million people employed. It could get to 3 million if we get it right. And, you know, people are building studios like they're going out of fashion. We can't get enough people into them. So don't get me started on that. That's really important. As far as the political register goes, of course they're there to get stories, but I think there is something, and there is something that it's not solely a job about scoops. It is the BBC, as you know only too well, Janine, the job of the and your publication does a pretty decent job of this as well. Is I think, well, it's important because I think part of what we do is proper balanced analysis. Just looking slightly at distance from a situation and saying what's going on here. And the key thing that people coming from the BBC is they trust us. They want a proper take on a situation. They don't want bias. We've all got lots of views on that. But Chris, I think Chris is, I would say this, but I believe it, is Chris is an outstanding candidate. And Laura Koonsberg, 7 years in that job, I don't know how Laura votes. I really don't. And I don't want it. I mean, it's not relevant. And that's the BBC Pollard job. Not an easy, it's not a choice for a light life, by the way. I think Chris is going to be busy, and a bit like my job. It's not, if you don't want to get on the treadmill, then don't do that job. I think he's going to be excellent.
I think everybody can agree it's not an easy job. And not to encourage you to bang on about spending money in the regions endlessly, but just to come back to that point about levelling up. The BBC always faces a very difficult choice on where to spend its money. There's always diminishing licence fee funds. Is it very convenient that your choices align with those of the government, or is it inconvenient? The idea that a huge amount of investment must be put into the regions at a time when you're going to have to look at cutting other services is rather pointed, isn't it?
The first thing I think, and this is what we believe, is the first thing is this is about our strategy of value to audiences. What do you get for the licence fee? And it's really straightforward, is you feel more connected to the BBC if you see output from your region, from drama, and this isn't just about news, it's writing from your area, good storytelling. And look, we will no doubt talk about it, but one of the things I believe, and this is a bit of my old commercial background, is you've got to be distinctive. You choose your points of difference. One of our points of difference is we are in the nations and regions, we are in locality. So I don't need a lot of prompting. And by the way, I don't think it's a party political agenda. I mean, there's all the various politics of the day in terms of seats and this, that, and the other, but I don't need a lot of prompting. And I don't think there's many politicians who aren't looking at the UK economy and going, we could do with distributed growth around the. So yes, there is an alignment of the stars on that, but it's certainly not driven by anything apart from really doing the right thing for audiences. And the other thing is, then that helps the creative industries. So I see that as a critical part of it. People know, I think they know me, and I'm passionate about this. It's not about just the BBC growing. The reason Manchester's worked is ITV are there. And when I talk in the Northeast, suddenly independents are coming and saying, we can set up business here. That's what really good public interventions can do. They can grow commercial businesses alongside them. And that's the record of the UK creative industries, by the way. Be very careful not to screw it up. I think it's a really, really precious thing.
We will, of course, come back to cuts, but I just want to talk first about the midterm review, which people will remember as a new thing instituted in the last charter, and which is about to start, I think. And we're all a bit confused about what it is exactly. It seems to be sort of a formal period for the DCMS to review the performance of the BBC, in direct contrast to business as usual. What is your understanding of the scope of it and how the process works?
Well, we're working that through with DCMS in terms of exactly what, how it works and what happens. I mean, the key thing is how the government's arrangements of the BBC are working, how we're doing in terms of the BBC is run. That is about how the BBC is run. There are bigger questions, which longer term, sorry, not direct. So I think it's actually the midterm reviews fairly well contained in terms of as it sits. There are other questions, which is, okay, what happens after the next charter? The media bill that may be coming in terms of where prominence sits for public. So there's a whole load of, I actually think there's a whole load of things coming through, and the VLV are a very important body in this actually, and have been, considered thoughtful in terms of these interventions. But it's a really, I would say, it's because I know how many we've got, 143 people on this call, are probably towards the end of the most interested in terms of the UK media market. I actually think the next few months and next period is really critical. If you think about all the moving parts of what the prominence legislation is, what that's going to look like, What's our vision for UK PSB? And then obviously the midterm review is part of that in terms of how the BBC is run.
Right, so these 143 who, as you say, are the most concerned, they're also the keenest to defend you and to defend the role of the corporation. So their concern obviously is a lack of transparency around the scope and the fear that it will be used as a sort of ongoing impartiality stick to beat you with, where at any moment any disenchanted minister can shout about bias on the BBC.
Well, I don't think we'll ever stop that last bit, by the way. Yeah, you're never going to stop. I mean, yeah, ministers are very able to shout at things, but the truth is, I think the scope is defined. Look, there'll always be interest, and I've set the agenda for the BBC, which is, it's a very simple thing that when I came in, I said, what are we valued for? And this whole kind of cliche of value for all, but actually is our strategy, and you have to be trusted. And I honestly feel that if you're not truly impartial, you're not. And it wasn't born out of a sense of crisis or problem, but it was risk of groupthink. It was risk in terms of the noisy culture wars that we're in, let alone the challenges around international coverage, politicians wanting to control their message more. All those things around us as journalists is really interesting, but I think that doesn't change. I think government obviously has, views appropriately to the side of media policy around impartiality, and also it's appropriate that we are held to account for what we say we're going to do. But I know where the lines are, and I think we are strong and committed to keep the independence of the BBC. Without that, we're nothing. So that I think we're clear on that.
You're in a very difficult position at the moment because as obviously as DG, you're editor-in-chief of BBC News, which is in a slight leadership hiatus because of Deborah Tenness's brilliant hire, contractual obligations at ITN. And I mean, traditionally, Tim, you and I both know this, the DG is always brought down by some minor fiasco in BBC News. That is how the DG ends. Ends his term. Do you feel like it's your job to stop the corporation being too woke?
I'm struggling just to that long drum roll about news, leading to the question on woke, which is, look, I think, by the way, Jonathan Munro, interim director of news. News is in a fine form at the moment, and we're doing well, and the numbers are strong, and it's more than that. Editorially, we can talk about Ukraine and Russia and all the things that we're reporting on, but I feel very bullish about our news operation at the moment. I think we've got great reporting going on. There's some of the finest stuff I've seen actually during my tenure at the BBC. So look, Deborah coming is great, as you say, fantastic hire. We're just working on exactly what date that will be, but I'm excited about that.
What about that report about trans that caused a massive row and was then deemed to be okay by the internal complaint service? How's that going?
Well, that then goes. We're at stage 2 complaint, which will evaluate that piece of reporting and then make a finding. That's where we are.
Who does the stage 2 complaint? Does that come to you?
Yeah.
So what do you think when you see reports like that?
Well,
I'm interested because you don't have the journalistic background of your predecessors.
No, I don't. But then that's a judgment that's difficult for me to make. But in terms of my experience, what I mean by that is whether, if you're in this job, you are editor-in-chief, and journalistic, you are making the calls. Now, having run BBC Radio, having made numerous, having handled the Savile crisis for 6 months when I was DG, or I would say, I unfortunately, to your point, Janine, have got this job does throw editorial dilemmas and crises up at a regular. That's my job, and to understand that. And then obviously we have Ofcom as the next port of call for someone who isn't happy with the BBC Stage 2. So without getting into too technical, I think that works as a system. As editor-in-chief, I have a role to play in that. And sometimes we find against ourselves, or we say we could have done things better. I think our transparency is critical in that. And we've got to be really, really open and clear about what we're doing as, the BBC. That's just part of being appropriately accountable.
But so, for example, would you have signed that off, or would you have approved the decision to run that piece, and are you now reviewing it?
In that situation, no, because it doesn't get to it does not get to, that didn't get to me as a sign off for that particular piece. In terms of the system, the level 2, we're getting into the real guts of the level 2 complaint is done.
I'll move on shortly.
Yeah, please. But you know, not that I'm happy to talk about it, but it's like it goes through the editorial you know, standards guys will look at that. Editorial policy, sorry, will go through that, their complaints team, and then it can meet at me if I've signed off a story. So that is true. But I think the system has validity, and that Ofcom are then there if they don't see us acting appropriately. Yeah, and you know, I think we have a pretty robust process. We've also got a very good track record, Ginny. I mean, I know that there are, you know, articles that come out, and there's over thousands of pieces of journalism, but and when we are going to make mistakes, we need to say sorry for them. We need to be very clear. I've never got a problem saying we didn't get that quite right. I think the BBC can be a bit, you know, auto defense is not a good position for a corporation. It needs to be thinking, considered, look through stuff and learn. And, you know, that's what we're here to do.
It's just very complicated. And now you've added independent thematic reviews on top, and that isn't necessarily clear whether.
Okay, can I just, not that complicated. Everyone likes it. It's honestly, but I think this is I think people like me need to simplify it, and it's not that complicated. You know, when we get a complaint in, we deal with the complaint. If it goes to the next level, then editorial policy deliver it. They will do a stage 2, you know, finding, and I will have a look at it. And if that doesn't work, goes to Ofcom. I think separately, the review is not based on complaints. That's nothing to do with it. That is, and it's really good. And I've been a big supporter of this, which is, and this goes to our history as well. And I think some of those reviews have been very helpful, which is the board looking at areas, and our first one is taxation and public spending, and saying, okay, how step back from the furore then on the individual pieces, which I think is really important in the news world, which is to go back and say, how are we covering this topic? How, you know, who are the people we're getting to speak on it? What are the angles on it? Are we asking the right questions? Is there any groupthink going on here? That's just good practice, and quite interesting, by the way. I think it's interesting work. But I don't think it's complex. I don't think that's complaints. That's just proper review. That's what we do in the BBC.
Sure.
We should be. I mean,
or it's setting up a new framework by which you have to monitor the complaints. But I also want to ask about diversity and inclusion. And we have a question from Simon Albury, the chair of the Campaign for Broadcasting Equality. He's referring to Marcus Ryder of the Lenny Henry Centre, who says he was blackballed by you after he'd been selected for a job by the BBC Appointments Panel. Simon wants to know if he's still blackballed for advocating diversity. And related to that, you've been accused of downgrading diversity and equality and inclusion with the departure of June Sarpong. Do you feel this job is done? Is that what a reason to downgrade that post?
We're not even close to done. By the way, Marcus is not blackballed. I've spoken to Marcus, sat with him. He's absolutely not blackballed. And Marcus is an incredibly talented executive. And we went through a process. He didn't get that job, but you know, we'd work with Marcus. You know, I absolutely, there's no issue there at all. And I can talk, Simon, we can talk about that in more detail, but that's absolutely clear. There was no blackballing at all. On the job, I mean, in terms of diversity and inclusion in the BBC, utterly critical. I think, as people know, I think if you talk to anyone in the BBC, we're not without our, you know, struggles and things we've got to do in the area, but in the last year and a half, there's no doubt we have got a massively increased focus on diversity, and that is, it's the building blocks I've got in my head are very much, you have to have targets. People always get slightly grumpy about targets. Do you need them? I've just set a socio-economic diversity target of 25%, but all the seniors in the leaders in the BBC are now held utterly accountable for delivering 50-20-12, the gender number, BAME, and disability, people with disability in the organisation, and we're tracking against that. So I think my latest BAME number is 16.6%. So we're ahead of population, but we've got work to do. I think we're 13% senior leadership. It's all transparent. It's clear. We've got a very hot market for BAME talent, so we are losing some people, but we're hiring people as well. We've had some brilliant hires. I won't go through them all, but at senior level. And I think we've got enormous work to do, by the way, enormous work to do, because the thing that happens here is we've never, I think as an industry, we've always had a lot of good intent and initiatives by the dozen. What we haven't really done is really changed the inclusivity of our organisation. So it really feels like a place for anyone to work. And there's not necessarily a type or a fit. And to do that, I think you have to reshape the organisation. And I've worked in organisations where this has been, happened in a way. I think the media industry's got more work to do. We are beginning to change the nature of our workforce, critically at the senior level, by the way. I think you can talk all day, but if you can't look at a senior leadership team and say, okay, I get it, people like me are succeeding, you never get there. And it's all about the numbers. Just hold us account to the numbers and how people are feeling in that.
I'm going to come to cuts immediately, and the questions are racking up, so brace yourself. But on this point you're making, a journalist called Nadine White last night on Twitter was writing about the fact that complaints against Tim Westwood had been racking up for years and years, that complaints were made to the BBC, possibly when you were in charge of radio, but that a lack of diversity amongst BBC management meant the complaints were ignored. Do you think that's fair?
I don't know. What I know from my point of view, a couple of things I'll say about the programme. And by the way, I don't know whether you've seen the programme, Janine, and watched it.
I haven't. I've read thousands of words in The Guardian, though.
Right. Well, it is shocking. And the testimony of the women is powerful and appalling. And by the way, I would note the BBC, I credit the BBC and Guardian teams for going after the story, by the way. I think that's absolutely what we should be doing. I've seen no evidence of complaints. I've seen no evidence. I've seen no evidence of complaint. I've asked, and we looked at our records and we've seen no evidence.
But does that not make her point that you need to be listening in a place where the complaints are being made and you're not represented in those areas?
Well, I don't know what we're conflating here in terms of whether you need someone of a certain type to have that complaint listened to, as it were. My view is wherever in the BBC you've got, I mean, I do think now we're in a position where we're very, very clear on culture, which is every complaint has to be taken seriously. I would never, if something like this were raised or anything comes up, we investigate it fully. And I would hope we were doing that in that time as well. I would simply say, Janine, if people have evidence where things weren't followed up or they have concern in this area, bring it to us. We want to investigate it. People who know. And
does that go for historic problems? You're interested?
Totally. I mean, I think people who know me know. The one thing I know is you have to look at yourself and say, did I know anything? And in this case, I've seen no evidence I did. But the one thing we will follow up anything, and we'll dig and dig and dig. And I want to know if people have got. I mean, it's shocking to see those testimonies. But this is more general. I'll make a point more generally. If people have got evidence of wrongdoing, absolutely, we need to bring it forward. Now, I think you're touching on something related to this, which is utterly related, by the way, which is a truly inclusive workforce means that people feel confident to speak up, talk, raise things. There's no fear in the environment. I think all corporations have to work really hard to create that environment. People know I'm passionate about it. And I hope at the BBC, all the work we're doing on values, the way if you're a senior leader now, you're assessed on, do you facilitate getting diversity of view, how happy your staff are. This is all critical to create an environment where it becomes completely unacceptable to behave in certain ways, but also things get raised quickly and dealt with. There has to be a trust.
Do you have sorry to interrupt, but do you have a special responsibility as the BBC with regards to talent and the privileges that come with talent that we've seen? I'm not going to name hundreds of names. And is there something you should be doing proactively rather than waiting for complaints?
I think we are doing, sorry, good point. I think we are doing things proactively. And I think any environment in which power can be abused is one you have to worry about. And the truth is, in our business, talent has, this is a weird business, and you've got the power of the talent often at the ground level, front line. Then you've got people like myself as executives. But all organizations have power residing in different places. And there's nothing worse in life than abuse of power. And what we need to do, by the way, is just, it's about values, about setting the right culture. It's about putting the right leaders in place. I'm sure you've had, I mean, I think we've had this across all the industry, where you need to be absolutely clear that it's completely unacceptable, and also create a very trusted process in terms of whistleblowing. And that is something we're working on. I'm very vocal on it, where the processes are good, but you have to keep building confidence.
All right, I keep flagging that we will talk about funding, so here we go. There are hundreds of questions. Clearly, the licence fees cuts are about to kick in. Firstly, how do you feel the process around the negotiation was run? Again, we're talking about a lack of transparency, which for organisations such as the VLV, it's very hard for them to defend you if they can't work out what the hell's going on with the process.
Yeah, to be fair, I think I thank the VLV and others who made a very strong case for the BBC investment. And I think we had a very strong case in terms of inflation investment in the BBC. And I'm disappointed we didn't get the first 2 years. So I know all this, I suspect everyone on this call knows where we ended up, which was the 2 years of flat and 4 years of CPI. I think overall, the biggest thing, by the way, that comes on the back of these huge savings that the BBC has had to make, with a 30% cut in real terms over 10 years.
So how do you decide what to cut now?
I think you do the framework that we're deploying, and I'm not here today to announce exactly what we're going to cut or what we're going to change, by the way, Janine. That may just...
No, we're talking principles.
But oh, good. Okay, you've let me off the hook a bit there. But I'm
going to ask you because the people are asking. But I'm just asking now about the principles.
I'm not going to answer. So, but the principles I think are really straightforward. Our strategy is offering you I'll do the UK for a minute, but we're a global media company. Is the strategy is to make sure I maximise the value for £13 a month that you get as the BBC. Against our public service mission, by the way. We're not trying to be Netflix. We are the BBC. We're going to be highly distinctive, of the highest quality, and I know the VLV are great champions of this. So all I want to do is, we are privileged to have had 6 years funding. That's good. It's certainty of income, and there are not a lot of strings attached, because often we've had over 75s to deal with and all the various issues of funding. So it is a clean settlement, but 2 years flat, particularly with... The inflation problem is compounded, by the way, of two things. One is our industry is highly competitive, so you're getting an internal inflation, production pricing, and then you've got obviously the cost of heating, etc.
Yes.
So let's talk about the principles. I think the principles are really clear, which is we're trying to maximise value. I'm trying to protect what you get for your licence fee. So the first place you go hunting is there more efficiencies? Is there more in the way we operate as the BBC? Can we find further ways in which we don't duplicate, or I'm getting most value from the money? And there is some way we can go in that. We are beginning to run out of road in terms of big contracts or things. There's no easy way of doing that. But the last year of the licence fee, we are essentially versus inflation based on our current forecast about, you've heard the number, 285 million light. So the first thing is, can you do more of that? Second is, can you get your commercial income up and your third party investment up, so that, investment in production that we can secure in the UK, our rights here, all of that. The great news is BBC Studios is doing phenomenally well, by the way. Mm-hmm. I mean, we'll wait and see how the year end looks like in the consolidated numbers, but I'm bullish.
Yes. Yeah? Are you going to cut any whole channels, Tim?
Then you get, we did ask about the principles, then you get to the services and what we do and what we don't do. I'm not going to announce today what we go smaller with, what we bring. What I would say, Janine, is I actually think the one question is what and if we cut anything, and we will have to make some choices. But the biggest thing, it's really interesting. The biggest thing is not that in my mind. The biggest thing is this overall pivot, to choose your corporate language, but the overall pivot to digital. How much are we doing in linear, and how much are we doing on demand? How much are we doing online in news? How much are we doing broadcast? How much of our output works well on iPlayer and on... This is the biggest decision for the BBC.
Sure.
But it's bigger than just what is the license fee cut? It's how you're going to deliver public service media in a digital age so that people who are primarily consuming on demand. So look, would I like more money? It means we could make more. We make 31 dramas a year. Yeah, that's if you. By the way, that job is open at the moment. So if you fancy it, commissioning BBC drama, you essentially choose about 30 dramas a year. We'll probably have to make less, or we haven't got quite as much money. We'll have to make a choice on where our services are at and just how we distribute them. Can we distribute every service on every platform? They're the kind of questions. We will make some choices and make that clear over the coming weeks.
There are a couple of principled questions I'd like to follow up on there. One is, in the end, once we come down to the content on the services and the services, the options are make the programs for less, and then people complain about quality, do more repeats, that never goes down well, or cut a service in its entirety and just say, well, that one's going. Now, I buy your argument that if everything's on digital, then services should matter less, except that you just brought back BBC Three. So clearly there is a value in having services still, or at least the BBC believes there is.
Of course.
Now, why
I would
with
make
hindsight,
sorry,
with
Janine,
hindsight,
let me help you. We would make less. We'd make
Right.
slightly less. What I'm not willing to do is compromise on quality.
right?
And I think the idea of trying to protect universality by doing everything with every service is the wrong way forward. You spread yourself too thin. Yeah. And actually you may decide to do slightly less. You may end up with services like BBC Four, which are primarily archive services. Let's be honest, they're great and they deliver good reach, but they're primarily archive services. So are they repeat? Yes. Are they of value? Yes. And we'll still have hundreds and thousands of hours of origination, but I would rather do less and protect quality.
Okay, so Anthony Warren in the comments just on this point is saying, why are you spending money on BBC Three live to air when its audiences of a generation used to streaming, and cutting BBC Four, whose older audience prefer live broadcasts?
Because
we're not going to speculate how old Anthony is.
But simply put, the first thing is, if you look at fair delivery in terms of the license fee and making sure we deliver value for all. By the way, I don't believe in a big lurch to youth in the BBC. I think it's the wrong. We need to be healthily paranoid about making sure we give value to young people under 1634s and 16 and unders for the children's provision. But I don't think it means you have to skew everything young in any way, shape, or form. It's good quality news, really outstanding natural history. Dramas are often liked by, Peaky Blinders had a very wide audience. Often we get these false choices. But the answer to your question is, I do think our provision for older audiences, if you take BBC Two, the average age of these linear channels, around 60. Now, obviously, when you take a drama like Peaky, you're doing half of the volume. This is going to hurt. I just saw the numbers this morning. Was 8.7 million watched it. Over 4 were on iPlayer. So we're in that. We're already in that world. I think that I do think we need a special service though for younger people with younger out. I mean, it's worked for us, BBC Three. The incremental cost of the linear shop window is actually relatively small because we're making the content. The issue is how many hours is BBC Three? And I do believe, by the way, that linear's got a long way to run, and it's a very, very good shop window for our content. We've seen, individual programs, we can debate the ratings and this, that, and the other, but overall, we've seen increases to youth. The numbers of 1634s coming.
The demographic
has got on that demographic has gone up over that. So I believe in playing both. I think that if I'm honest, publicly people love let's kill a channel, but the truth is you can reduce content. I've said this publicly many times.
You tried to kill BBC Six. That didn't go well, did it?
Well, the BBC board made a decision to propose to close BBC Six. That is a longer conversation, Janine. But yeah,
let's not do that now.
Let's not do that. I remain a loyal listener. Anyway.
A very well served demographic. A lot of people are asking about Channel 4. I imagine you've spent quite a lot of the last few months thinking, haha, that's not my problem. But it is clearly part of the ecology of public service broadcasting in the United Kingdom. And plays a role for the BBC. I've got questions from Lindsay Mackey and Sarah Thane on this. Let's pick one angle. How important is it to the BBC that Channel 4 remains in public ownership?
I'm not comment. I don't think the BBC is going to give a view on the ownership structure. I'm not going to give a view on the ownership structure. That's one more direct way of phrasing it. What I do care about massively is, I think, the role of public service broadcasting this is not a coincidence that we've got such a precious high quality media market that's doing such brilliant things. And part of that is a thriving indie sector and competition. If people who know me now, I've got, people, are you worried about Talk TV? Are you worried about Channel? I think competition is really, really healthy. The fact that Sky's grown a brilliant business over the last decade, and Channel 4 has been an essential component part of delivering a really vibrant public service media sector in the UK. I go around the world, and I'm telling you, if you want cheering up, because the Brits, we give ourselves a good dose of self-flagellation. Go around Europe, talk to the other public service broadcasters, talk to other media markets, talk about the quality of their news, the quality of the programming. Channel 4 has been a really important part with the indies of nurturing small businesses. When I'm in Belfast and we're doing BBC Three commissions and we're getting 60 indies pitching ideas, Channel 4 is often beside us in Leeds, in other places, in London as well, but commissioning unique work from small companies. And the creative industries is actually 400,000, believe it or not, SMEs and a few big players. That's all the creative industries. So look, they are very important. We together are very important, and that should be protected. The ownership structure of itself, I'll let others get into. But
would you be worried if ITV bought it? Would that feel threatening?
To be honest, I'm less concerned about the specific constructs of the commercial market as such, because I think we're not, our primary revenue is not fighting for advertising money. We're linked in UK TV. We've got the license fee. I've got to make very, very clear decisions on making sure the value for that £159 is there. We're lucky to not, be in different markets and different fights. We are globally. My view is, that's fine. Let others decide what the right ownership structure is, but by goodness, protect the market.
Question from Liz Leonard, who says she is a former BBC employee and passionate supporter of public service broadcasting. Can you guarantee that the BBC won't sell off BBC Studios moving forward? It's already at arm's length of the PSB main requirements, but a critical component of UK indie production, and there are plenty of global media giants who would snap it up.
The one thing, thank you for the support of public service broadcasting. We do need to fight here. It is a fight for this. Now, I think actually the one thing I've kind of just adjust the observation there is, I think BBC Studios is closer rather than further away. If you think, there was a lot of rumours of, was BBC Studios buying alternative business? Do you remember they bought Lonely Planet? We're pushing a little bit in terms of a business that was...
I do remember that. That was a horror show, yeah.
I'll let you on that. That's the official summary from the financial press. But you remember, so in some ways, when I ran BBC Studios, I had one objective for putting production into studios, which is to keep talent. That's it, by the way. Keep talent, and then allow them to grow and develop IP that benefits the license fee payer. Now, the idea that the Natural History Unit is a core part of the BBC, absolutely essential core part. It happens to be in the commercial side of the BBC, but it is wholly driven by public service values. They're passionate about what they do, but they have the economic, we can invest in it, we can grow it, we can develop the new headquarters in Bristol. So I don't see, by the way, something moving to the commercial side as giving up on the public service. I just think it's actually the way we can make the economics work better. And I think BBC Studios is utterly core, and is.
So you would never sell it. You would never sell it.
I'm going to do I can't see, under my tenure, I can't see any which way in which this isn't a critical part of the core public service BBC.
Okay, there you go, Liz. I've got a number of questions from people asking how the BBC engages with its audiences and service users, including one asking whether that relationship, or suggesting that relationship, has become harder since the dissolution of the BBC Trust. Do you recognise that characterisation?
I think we're still, no, really. I mean, I think there was different ways in which we did talk. I can understand. The reason I'm hesitant is I think this is a very good group to talk about that. Yeah, not potentially.
Because if they think it, then surely there must be something.
That's what I'm saying. Because, you know, and it's difficult to do with 152. We're growing audience here. This is always a good sign for a media outlet. So 152 people on a Zoom call, it's impossible to do. And I think we are all ears in terms of how we consult, how we get input, how people, I want the BBC to be porous listening. Now, do we have fantastic, even better research than we've ever had in terms of how people feel about the BBC, our tracking, our numbers, our focus, you know, the inevitable focus groups, the panels? We're doing all of that. I think we've got a really good connection. We can understand where audiences are at. We've got really good mapping of how they feel, and obviously digital data gets in the mix. So you begin to see, okay, how are the people, even of a postcode or a community, kind of how close are they to the BBC, how much value they're getting? We're doing a lot of that work. How we engage with stakeholders, Janina, and I think is actually something we do want to think about as we go into this next period. We're in for a big discussion in terms of the future of the BBC beyond 27, 28. And I think we'll need to spend some time with the VLV and others talking about how we get the proper input into that. It's a really important discussion.
And a final one, because we're almost out of time. What happened with BritBox, Tim? What have you learned from that one?
Well, I've learned we've got a fantastically successful, number one, we've got a fantastically successful business in the US with ITV. I mean, seriously, really, I mean, it's not the biggest SVOD service. It's a powerful niche, but very low.
What's it generating?
Well, it's got, I think we're kind of I'll say in between 2 and 3 million subscribers. So we're growing, low churn, and let's just say good economics. Yeah, it's a really good business, and it's worked alongside both our ITV and ourselves. Feel that it works alongside our business really well. So that is good news. Yeah, in the UK, I think it works well as a complementary. We have primary business. Sorry, this is pretentious way of phrasing it as ever, but we have primary business models in the UK that in ITV's terms are advertising, and in my terms are a license fee. So we're not going to put all our content immediately onto SVOD. I can't speak for ITV, but we're not going to we want to make sure iPlayer is growing share, doing its business and offering you great value. And those you will have seen, by the way, we haven't even scratched the surface on product investment, making sure iPlayer is world-class. And hopefully you'll see, even over the last year, significant investment. The iPlayer is a good product and it's winning share, and it's a really, really critical service for us. Beyond that, we've always had a secondary market in the UK, UK TV. BritBox has been pretty successful as a tuck-in business that works alongside that can work and out with ITV working in the UK. I think it's perfectly sensible business to have alongside our core businesses, and it works. Good offer.
Okay, right. Well, that's a slightly odd note to end on, but we're out of time. Thank you very much, Tim. That was a bit of a romp through, but thank you for tackling everything in your customary directness, apart from the things that you've used to answer. I'm going to hand back to Colin, but thank you again.
Thanks.